Hi, my name is Crystal Santos. I live in Bloomfield, New Jersey. I was born and raised in Bloomfield. I am married to Ramon Santos, and we have 3 beautiful babies. My daughter Genesis, she's 9 years old. Ramon, he's 5 years old, and then Zachariah, who's 1.5. We were raised in a Pentecostal church in Newark. So we started attending church when I was about 4 years old. My dad was Catholic, and my mom and my dad were married. And when I was about 11 years old, they got divorced. So my mom and my aunt were the main ones who raised us. My dad was always in the picture, and he always came around and made sure that he spent time with us and everything. I used to be very involved in the church when I was younger. I had a mime ministry. I used to do mimes. I used to be part of the youth. I used to be very involved. And then around 20 years old, I had just started college and I got pregnant with Genesis. And it was very different. I felt like I didn't belong anymore. People started to talk about me. People started to make me feel like I didn't belong because I wasn't married and I had this baby and I was young. And so I ended up distancing myself from the church, and I just stopped attending the church because of that. I've been with Ramon since I was 15. So when I found out I was pregnant, we moved in together. We started this family, the 3 of us, and I continued going to school and I continued my path of becoming a teacher. And as that path went on, I always knew who God was. I always loved God. I always worshiped in my own way, but I didn't want to attend church. I guess the shame or the embarrassment of it, because I wasn't married and I was living with someone. Then I got pregnant again when I had graduated college. I got pregnant with Ramon. And so I had Ramon, and when Ramon was about 1, Christy, that comes to the church, we grew up in the Pentecostal church together. So we knew each other since we were kids. And she would post videos on YouTube, and, on Instagram and Facebook. And I asked her, I'm like, Christy, what church is that? It seems great. And she's like, oh, you should come visit. They have a great kids ministry. You should come. And so at first I was like, I don't know, but I really wanted to attend a church. I really wanted to go back to church. I wanted my kids to be in church because that's how I grew up. And I wanted them to know God. So we attended Skyline when they were at the Boys and Girls Club. That was our first time. I remember Edith knew my name the second time I went. So we would visit often, but we never stood, if that makes sense. We would come for a couple weeks and then we wouldn't come for months. And then we would come again for a couple weeks and then we wouldn't go for months. And every time I came back, no one ever made me feel like I ever left. And it wasn't until I got pregnant with Zachariah that I actually decided to stay. By then we had gotten married and everything was great. And I was excited. I wanted a 3rd kid, yes, another baby. At 9 weeks, I found out that he was diagnosed with the virus called CMV. And I remember going by myself thinking it was going to be a happy doctor's visit. Oh yes, I'm going to find out the baby. I'm going to find out how many weeks I am. And when I go, the doctor's like, I need to talk to you. And I said, sure, no problem. Let's talk. And I was by myself. We were in the office and he's telling me about the fact that he has this virus and all the complications that come with it. And the fact that I was young and I had 2 other kids and I didn't need to go along with the pregnancy. But in that moment, I felt alone, and I felt even though he was talking, I wasn't listening. I just heard I felt like I heard God tell me, don't worry, you have to trust me. I let him talk and I let him give me my options, and he gave me the option to abort it. He's like, you're only 9 weeks. We can do it up to 12 weeks if that's what you want to do. You're young. You don't need to do this. And I told him I can't make that decision right now. Let me think about it. I need to pray about it. I can't do this right now. But as he's talking, I still knew that God was telling me, you have to trust me. And I said, okay. And I left the office and I broke down in the car and I cried all the way home. And then when I went home, I spoke to my family about it. I remember my aunt telling me, you know God, you grew up in church, you know who God is, and you have to trust God. And I made that decision that no matter what was going to go on, I was going to trust God. No matter the good, the bad, the ugly, I was going to trust God. And so I went along with the pregnancy. And throughout the pregnancy, it was a roller coaster. Around 19 weeks, they told me that he had fluid in his belly and that if it spread to his lungs or another part of his body, that he might pass away. And I told God, well, God, you know, this is scary, but I have to trust you. When I was pregnant, I said, I'm gonna join a life group. I asked Christy, I'm like, Christy, what life group do you attend? I've never been in a life group, but I need the support right now. And she's like, oh, join my life group. So I joined Diane's life group. And it was a great experience. It was exactly what I needed. There I learned what it was to be a church family, what it was to have someone love on you, what it was to hear the truth, to know that these girls had your back no matter what. When I was in the hospital, they would send me food at home sometimes, or when I had to stay in the hospital, they came visit it. They would tell me constantly, I'm praying for you, or just tell me the truth, that maybe the baby wouldn't be healed, but that God wasn't ever gonna leave me. And that's exactly what I needed, because even though I knew God my whole life, I knew who he was, I grew up in church, I knew everything, I never had God live inside of me and really feel like he was with me. And it wasn't until I was almost about to have him that I was having more problems. I was like 31 weeks. And they told me, well, we're not gonna send you home. You have to live in the hospital. Basically, I had to stay there for 3 weeks, or 3.5 weeks. And they said, we wanna make sure the baby's okay. And I had to stay in New York, which was even further for me. And I cried. I didn't want to stay there, but I had to for him. And at this moment, there was times I was alone in the room. Many times I was mostly alone. My family would visit, people from church, or my daughter would come, or my sons. But at the same token, I was alone. I remember one day, just being there and just asking God to come live inside of my heart and to be there, and that I was going to trust him no matter the obstacle. I had Zechariah. He was born preemie, but I had him and he came out and he's perfect to me. He has hearing loss. He can't hear in both ears. He's 18 months and he doesn't walk yet, but they've done every test under the moon and they can't find nothing wrong with him. I want to show the world that God is real, and that if he is there for me and he was there with me and he continues to be there with me no matter what we go through, we're not going to be perfect. God didn't say we were going to be perfect, but he's there and he's real and he lives in me, and I want to show people that.